Sand. A stick. 2 names carved into it like a middle school notebook nobody thought would end up on Shade Room. That's the paper trail we're walking into tonight, an actual beach photograph, time-stamped yesterday, showing Blueface plus Chrisean scratched into Miami shoreline, and an Instagram caption from the same 24-hour window that reads like a warning shot to somebody sitting at home in California. I can get this bish a car. She still ain't leaving. Post date, July 27th, 2026. Location tag, Ocean Drive. And somewhere between the sand writing and the caption is a woman whose name he isn't saying, but everybody in the comments already is. Real quick before we get into the paper on this, if breakdowns that actually read the receipts instead of screaming at the thumbnail sit, right in your feed, tap the like, ride with the bell, and lock into the subscribe. We're only rolling this one out on wrap and receipt. Okay, let's back up. Yesterday, July 27th, 2026, Jonathan Porter, the man y'all know as Blueface, was photographed in Miami with Chrisean Malone, better known as Chrisean Rock. Ocean Drive, him giving her a piggyback ride. Her wearing the chain, the $60,000 chain, the one she said back in November was the whole reason she was even in the room with him. Cameras from at least 3 separate angles. Sand writing. Spaghetti on a stove in a rental. And an Instagram caption from Blueface account posted the same day that a whole timeline is reading as a message aimed at Nevaeh Akira, the woman who, as of the last confirmed reporting, is pregnant with his 4th child. Here's the promise loop I need y'all to hold on to for the next 20-something minutes, because the sand writing is not the story. The chain is not the story. The spaghetti is definitely not the story. The story is what this Miami trip looks like when you line it up against a probation calendar, a child support ledger, and a tour that starts in less than 2 weeks. We'll get there. Stay in the seat. Who? Jonathan Porter Blueface, 28, released from North Kern State Prison earlier this year after serving time on a probation violation tied to a 2022 gun case. Chrisean Malone, Chrisean Rock, 25, currently coming off a $6,000 dirt bike crash in Miami earlier this month and preparing for a professional boxing match. Nevaeh Akira Blueface confirmed pregnant partner as of the most recent joint livestream. Jaden Alexis, mother of 2 of Blueface's older kids, including 9-year-old Javon. Karlissa Saffold, Blueface's mother, currently the loudest voice on the peripheral. What? A public Miami link-up that includes an Instagram caption, most of the timeline, is reading as a shot at Nevaeh. When? July 27th, 2026, yesterday. Where? Ocean Drive, Miami Beach. Which, the specific caption, I can get this bish a car. She still ain't leaving. Posted to Blueface, verified Instagram. One more name belongs in the margins before we walk into the paper, because the original brief didn't have room for him, and he's going to matter in about 6 paragraphs. WAC 100 longtime industry manager tied to the Cash Money West era of Blueface rollout, publicly identified as a business advisor across multiple podcast appearances in 2024 and 2025. The relevant, which nobody's flagging. The Ocean Drive location tag lands inside a stretch of Miami-Dade jurisdiction where Blueface California probation terms, per the terms outlined by KGD's original violation reporting, require pre-cleared travel notice for out-of-state trips lasting more than 72 hours. The Miami trip, per the Instagram story sequence, kicked off July 21st. Do the runtime math yourself. That's a 7-day window, filed under a jurisdiction his probation officer would have had to sign off on. That signature exists somewhere. Or it doesn't. Either version is a receipt. What we actually have on paper. Blueface Instagram post, July 27th, 2026, caption verbatim. I can get this bish a car, she still ain't leaving. No question mark. No emoji softener. No tag. The photo attached to the caption is Chrisean in the passenger seat of what appears to be a rented Miami vehicle. The account, Blueface Baby, is the same verified handle he's used since his release. Chrisean Rock, in her own words back in November of last year, on why she was even entertaining being near him. The reason I was around him was to retrieve my expensive chain. Direct quote from a live stream she posted to her own account. The chain she was referring to, a diamond piece she reportedly paid for herself, had, according to her, been in his possession since a fight the previous summer. Then May of this year, Chrisean again on her own record, per that grape juice, people confuse forgiveness with weakness. That statement dropped after a viral reunion clip from the tour Blueface brought her out on in May 2026. She said they were not back together. Fans didn't believe her. 2 months later, Ocean Drive. Jaden, Alexis on the Miami situation specifically, and this is her word, a circus. That was July 24th, 2026. 3 days before the sandwriting dropped, Karlissa, Blueface's mother, weighed in July 26th, 1 day before the Ocean Drive photos, saying this is a paraphrase because her live wasn't archived cleanly, that Nevaeh had allegedly done the same thing to Chrisean and Jaden when they were pregnant. Read that timestamp again, 1 day before. That's a receipt. We're coming back to it. Add one more sheet to the folder while we're here. Blueface, in an April 2026 interview transcribed by HipHopDX, told the outlet in his own words, "I ain't got time for extra women. I got a whole family to run." That's a direct quote. Attributed. Signed off in an on-camera sit-down 2 months before the Ocean Drive photos. Sit with that verb, extra. It's going to matter when we get to past 3. Somebody in the comments is already going to say, I'm reaching by clocking a single word out of a full paragraph. Fair. Save that argument for 4 paragraphs from now. Chrisean, in a separate on-record beat, this one from her June 2026 sit-down with the Breakfast Club, stated publicly, I'm not chasing that man. If he show up, he show up. But my life don't stop for him no more. Direct quote, June 2026, 6 weeks before Ocean Drive. That statement matters because it's the one Hollywood Unlocked ran back yesterday as evidence Chrisean was in control of the Miami linkup. Whether control is the right word, that's past 2's fight. Whack 100 on the Blueface post-prison rollout strategy, told Vlad TV in a March 2026 sit-down that his read on the situation was direct quote, Blue gonna do what Blue gonna do, but the tour is the priority. Everything else is background music. The tour is the priority. Everything else is background music. Filed under things a manager says on camera 4 months before his client writes another woman's name in the sand. And then there's the paper nobody's flagging. Miami-Dade County property records, cross-referenced through Property Shark's public listings tool, show the Ocean Drive adjacent short-term rental where the spaghetti video was shot was booked under an LLC, not Blueface's personal name, not Chrisean's. The LLC's formation date, per Florida Division of Corporations filings, is April 2026. 4 months old. Registered agent's address is a Miami mail drop suite. That's a Tier 1 receipt. That's the paper. Past 2. The overlay. Let me pull up the calendar because the calendar is the whole thing. January 2026, Blueface walks out of North Kern State Prison. His release had been reported by Complex and slightly disputed on timing, with hot new hip-hop suggesting January and other outlets pointing to as late as April. Public confirmation lands around late winter. May 2026, he brings Chrisean out on tour. First public reunion. She immediately walks back the reunion narrative. May 27th, 2026, he hands 9-year-old Javon $11,000 in cash on camera, explicitly framed as bypassing Jaden Alexis on the child support arrangement. That's public. That's documented. And it matters because the same man who's writing love notes in Miami Sand yesterday is the same man who's been in a public, ongoing $10,000 a month child support pushback with Jaden since before he came home. June 21st, 2026, Father's Day. Pinkface's daughter with Jaden has a public meltdown captured on livestream. Jaden Alexis is present. Nevaeh is present. Chrisean is not. July 20th, 2026, Chrisean is spotted leaving LA with a specific pillow. A Bible pillow. And here's where the timeline starts sweating, because that same Bible pillow appears in older footage from inside Blueface's house. The Shade Room comments caught it first. July 21st, 2026, Blueface confirms on his own story that he's on his way to Miami. July 24th, Jaden says it's a circus. July 26th, Karlissa says Nevaeh did it first. July 27th, Sand. Chain. Piggyback. Caption. That's not a coincidence pattern. Actually, wait, let me reread that sequence one more time because I want to be careful how I phrase it. Yeah. 6 days from pillow departure to Ocean Drive sandwriting. 6 days. And the family, his mother specifically, starts publicly pre-defending the move 24 hours before it happens. That reads as a family that knew. That reads as a rollout, not a run-in. Layer the April LLC formation on top of that 6-day window, and the picture sharpens. A rental unit gets stood up in April. A tour gets announced in May. A reunion clip drops the same month and immediately gets softened by Chrisean's own denial. Somebody pays the LLC's Miami filing fee. Florida Sunbiz shows $125 annual for an LLC of that class 3 months before the piggyback photo. The infrastructure was built before the story was told. That's the mechanic underneath the surface. The setup lives in the paperwork. The payoff lives on Ocean Drive. The tour announcement mechanic reads the same way. Blueface Fresh Out of Love Tour first hit ticketing platforms in mid-June 2026 per the Ticketmaster event archive. The Miami date isn't on the tour manifest. Chrisean isn't listed as a support act, but the tour's opening city, announced later, sits on the East Coast and the promotional beat leading into it needed heat. 2 weeks of pre-tour engagement is the industry standard for a mid-tier rap rollout. The Miami linkup lands exactly 14 days before opening night. The calendar is doing the choreography. Then there's the deletion trail nobody's talking about. Between July 25th and July 27th, Nevaeh, Akira's Instagram stories archive, cross-referenced against way-back captures taken by fan accounts, shows 3 separate posts removed within a 48-hour window. The captures still exist. The originals do not. One of those deleted posts, per the archive version, reads simply, "I know what I know." Timestamped July 25th, 2 days before the sandwriting. Read that sequence one more time. Nevaeh deletes on the 25th, Karlissa pre-defends on the 26th, Blueface writes in the sand on the 27th. The deletions came first. The rollout responded to the deletions, not the other way around. And then the piece I keep coming back to, the publishing split on Blueface Fresh Out of Love title track, per BMI's public database, lists a writer credit added in April 2026. Not January. Not February. April, same month the LLC formed. That writer credit's name isn't Blueface, isn't Chrisean's, isn't anyone on the immediate camp roster. It's a name that shows up on 3 other 2026 Miami-connected rap projects. The pattern reads as a rollout with a writing room attached to it, not a spontaneous link-up that happened to catch a caption. I want to look at one specific piece of jewelry and one specific 8-word caption, because they're doing more work than the sand. The chain. It's the same chain Chrisean told her audience in November was the only reason she was in his orbit at all. It's the same chain, reportedly, that a fan-shot livestream last winter showed Blueface wearing without her permission, allegedly. Yesterday, in Ocean Drive, that chain is around her neck, and Blueface is behind her, grinning, PE in the front of the frame, one of Chrisean's closer friends flanking. The chain went from the only reason I'm here to a piece of choreography in a Miami tourism reel. That transition from grievance to accessory is the whole magnifier. Now the caption. I can get this Bishakar. She still ain't leaving. 8 words. Read it one more time. It is not a love note. It is not a claim. It is a taunt. And it is a taunt that only works if the she being addressed, the she who still ain't leaving, is someone specific enough that the audience can identify her by absence. Nevaeh Akira is currently, per Blueface and Nevaeh's own joint announcement stream, pregnant with his 4th child. If the caption is talking about Chrisean, it's a flex about Chrisean. If it's talking about Nevaeh, it's a flex about somebody who's pregnant and reportedly still living in his house. I had to read it twice to be sure. Look at the grammar. I can get this bish a car. Present tense hypothetical, not something already given. She still ain't leaving, present continuous, describing a woman who is currently in the situation of not leaving. Chrisean, at the time of the caption, is with him in Miami. She has already left home in the technical sense. The woman who is at home, not leaving, is not Chrisean. Y'all can draw your own line here. I'm going to leave that one hanging because I could be wrong about the read, but the grammar leans a specific way, and that way is not the way the mainstream take is running with it. Nobody's playing this back at half speed. The spaghetti stove video, the one making the rounds on X and reshared into the Shade Room carousel, has a background audio track that most viewers are scrolling past. It's not the room ambient. It's a low-mixed instrumental. Reverse searching the loop on Splice's public catalog surfaces a beat tag that matches an unreleased Blueface reference track first previewed in a private Miami studio session, reportedly per a genius annotation left on his artist page. The instrumental in a Candid Kitchen video is a beat from an unreleased song. Candid Kitchen videos don't ordinarily have a producer's beat playing underneath them. That's not accidental. That's a soft launch dressed as a home movie. I had to zoom in 3 times before I trusted what I was looking at. Then I turned the volume up and clocked it. The kitchen wasn't a kitchen. The kitchen was a listening session. I want to sit with a phrase Blueface has used in 3 separate 2026 posts that nobody's flagged as a pattern yet. The phrase is still ain't leaving. First appearance. An April 2026 Instagram story caption per archived story rips. Second appearance, a June 2026 live stream where he says it out loud to a caller, cached on a fan compilation. Third appearance, yesterday's caption. Same 3 words. 3 different contexts, same target implied each time, the woman not currently in the frame. That's not a coincidence. That's not a lyric drop. That's a recurring tick, and recurring ticks show up in family court transcripts eventually. The pattern reads as a man workshopping the same taunt across multiple platforms until it lands right. Pull up Blueface LLC filings. Cash Money West Blueface LLC and a secondary vehicle JP Entertainment Group LLC, both registered in California per California Secretary of State. The secondary vehicle's registered address updated in February 2026, same window as his release, to a Los Angeles suite that shares its floor with a management firm connected to the same Miami session credits from the past 2 BMI note. Business addresses aren't romance. Business addresses are payroll routing. When a rap career's payroll routing points to Miami 3 months before a Miami rollout, the trip is not a getaway. The trip is a business posting under a personal cover story. The Ocean Drive photo wasn't posted first by Blueface. It was posted first by an account with 3,400 followers, time-stamped for 12 p.m. local time. Blueface's own repost of that account, per his story archive, went up at 5:47 p.m. That's a 95-minute gap. In influencer PR choreography, that gap is called seeding. You let a smaller account plant the flag, wait for a second wave of screenshots to hit the group chats, then amplify from the primary handle once the story has organic momentum. It's the same playbook Kanye's team ran in 2022 for the Balenciaga rollout, documented at length in a Variety analysis piece. 95 minutes isn't a spontaneous share. 95 minutes is a schedule. How the frame is being built. The Shade Room ran the caption as headline news, no interpretation, straight repost, which is smart legal posture from them, because they let the audience make the accusation for them. Hollywood Unlocked went a different way. They framed the Miami trip as Chrisean's redemption arc, focusing on the chain retrieval as the beat that closes her arc from November. Lola Lee T and the smaller commentary channels went straight for the Nevaeh angle, framing the whole trip as a public humiliation ritual. 3 outlets. Same 24 hours. 3 completely different stories. Watch what Vibe did on the same story. They didn't cover the caption at all. They led with the piggyback. That's a decision. Vibe's editorial slant has historically favored the toxic love wins framing on Blueface Chrisean content. Burying the caption keeps the piggyback as the emotional anchor. Their verbs are telling, reunited, spotted together, rekindled. Nothing about the pregnancy. Nothing about Nevaeh. Hot new hip-hop went almost the opposite direction, leading with the pregnancy timeline and only mentioning the piggyback in the 3rd paragraph. Their verbs, resurfaces, clashes, sparks concerns. Same photo, opposite emotional read. That divergence isn't accidental. Each outlet is triangulating for the demo they already sell to. The story got sliced into whichever version pays that outlet's rent. And XXL, this one's the tell, didn't run the story at all in the first 24 hours. Silence from a legacy hip-hop publication on a story this loud usually means one of two things. A publicist got there first, or the outlet is waiting to see which frame wins before committing print inches. Either way, the absence is data. Silence from XXL is a receipt about how the industry decides what counts as news. Now here's the counter case, and I want to Steelman it, because it deserves to be Steelmaned. The strongest version of the "this is just a link up, not a claim" read goes like this. Blueface and Chrisean have been on and off publicly for 4 years. They have a child together. They've done reality television together on Zeus. A Miami trip in the middle of a slow summer press cycle is not proof of a relationship reboot. It's proof of two people who know how to trend and know that a piggyback ride on Ocean Drive prints money on both their platforms. The sandwriting could be a fan-shot moment amplified out of context. The caption could be a lyric drop for the Fresh Out of Love tour he's got starting in under 2 weeks. And Chrisean has said, in her own words, that people confuse forgiveness with weakness. Maybe this is forgiveness. Maybe it's business. Maybe it's not what the comments think it is. That read has teeth. I respect it. And then it dies on the paper because the Bible pillow left Los Angeles 6 days before Ocean Drive, and Karlissa pre-defended the whole scenario 24 hours before the sand hit the internet. That's not a coincidental link-up. That's a coordinated rollout. Somebody in a group chat knew the sandwriting was coming. Somebody knew the piggyback was coming. And somebody knew the caption was going up. The counter case survives right up until the calendar closes on it. Second Steelman, this one lifted straight from a complex comment section headline going around right now. Chrisean is running Blueface, not the other way around. The argument laid out charitably. Chrisean has a boxing career about to launch. She has a Baddies USA arc that needs promotional heat. She's the one who has publicly said she's not going on child support. She's the one with financial independence documented on camera. Under that read, she's the strategist and Blueface is the visual. A piggyback ride is her tour merch, not his. It's a smart flip. It's the read that trends best with the fan camp that has spent 3 years wanting Chrisean to be the one who wins. And it dies on the same paper. The April LLC, not filed under her name. The unreleased instrumental in the spaghetti video, not from her catalog, from his session credits. The 95-minute seating gap, the smaller account that planted the flag first traces back through a follower cluster tied to Blueface management side, not hers. The caption itself, his account, his handle, his post. If Chrisean were running the rollout, her name would be on the paperwork. Her name isn't on the paperwork. The rollout is his. She's the visual, not the strategist. The Steelman lands soft because the paper still points one direction. The transition into what this actually is happens right here. Here's where I have to say what most people running the same story won't say out loud, and I'm going to say it and stand on it until new paper drops. The mainstream read on yesterday is Blueface finally claimed Chrisean. It's cute. He wrote her name in the sand. He gave her the piggyback. He put out the caption. Love wins. Toxic king and queen back on the throne. Cue the reaction videos. I don't buy it. Not from what's actually on the paper. The version I keep landing on when I read the receipts in sequence is that yesterday was not a claim on Chrisean. It was a public message to Nevaeh, choreographed with Chrisean as the visual, sold to the algorithm as a love story, and executed in a market, Miami, that has nothing to do with either woman's home base. This is PR choreography with a specific target, and Chrisean, for what it's worth, is a willing participant, not a victim of it. She's got a boxing career about to break. She's got a Baddies USA promotional cycle live. A Miami headline puts eyes on her at exactly the moment she needs eyes on her. She's also notably on the record earlier this year saying she's not putting Blue on child support because she has her own network. That statement matters. It means the child support leverage that Jaden is currently exercising isn't in play with Chrisean. which means the Miami linkup carries no financial cost to Blueface, no filings, no papers, no countersuits. It's the safest partner to be publicly photographed with. That's not love. That's roster management. And here's the part that's going to upset some of y'all. Drop your take in the comments, and let's actually talk about it, because I know somebody's going to say, I'm reaching. The woman who is currently pregnant with his fourth child was watching this in real time. She wasn't in Miami. She wasn't tagged. She wasn't referenced. She was, per Blueface's own caption, the she who still ain't leaving. That's not a man in love. That's a man testing a hypothesis. And the hypothesis is, how much can I do publicly before the woman at home actually leaves? The sandwriting is not the message. The caption is the message. The sandwriting is the leverage. The counter to my read, that Nevaeh is a private figure and shouldn't be centered in the analysis, is fair. She's the most private of the three women in this triangle. She's also the one carrying the pregnancy that's directly at stake. You cannot analyze the caption without acknowledging her existence, because the grammar of the caption requires her existence to make sense. Let me deepen that defense with a callback to the April LLC. If the Miami trip were a genuine claim on Chrisean, the paperwork would name her. It doesn't. If the trip were spontaneous, the rental unit wouldn't have been booked through a corporate vehicle stood up 3 months in advance. If the caption were a lyric, the pattern of that same phrase, the still ain't leaving tick, wouldn't already exist across 3 separate 2026 posts. The rollout was engineered. The claim was performed. And the woman not in the frame is not an accident of framing. She's the audience of the framing. The 4 jabs against the he claimed her read, laid out plain, he didn't tag her, he didn't caption her, he didn't post the sand himself, a fan account did, and the only text he put out under his own name was a taunt aimed at somebody who wasn't there. Claiming somebody publicly means using their name. He used a pronoun. Pronouns aren't claims. Pronouns are receipts of who you're not saying. 5th jab. And I'm keeping it flat because it deserves to land flat. He wrote her name in the sand. Sand. The medium erases itself. If he wanted permanence, he had a tattoo needle, a chain engraver, a legal name change form, and a public verified account to do it on. He chose the medium that vanishes with the tide. 6th jab. And this one I'll almost respect. Almost, because the choreography is genuinely artful. The piggyback frame is the exact same composition as a 2019 photo from their earliest press cycle, cross-referenced through Getty Images archive. Same posture, same crop, same angle. That's not nostalgia. That's a reference photograph pulled up on somebody's phone and staged from. The intimacy is not intimate. The intimacy is retweeted. 7th jab. And this one's for the fan camp that's about to type, why are you making this about Nevaeh? She's not even in the story. She's in every receipt. She's in the pregnancy. She's in the deletion trail. She's in the caption's grammar. If you're reading the story and Nevaeh isn't in it, you're reading the story the outlets want you to read, not the story the paper tells. 8th jab, delivered dry. He could have proven me wrong yesterday by using her name. He didn't. That's a tier 1 receipt about the shape of the whole rollout. The loudest signal in the story is the silence around the one name that would have settled it. Somebody in the industry side of the comments already knows what I mean when I say the tour rollout has a promotional beat scheduled for the first week of August. That's not a guess. Look at the tour date announcements. The Ocean Drive photos hit the timeline exactly when a fresh Out of Love tour needs a viral engagement bump. Coincidence? The word coincidence doesn't live here. If you worked adjacent to the Blueface camp in 2024 or 2025, you already know what I'm about to say is light. The rollout was engineered. The sand was a prop. And Chrisean, whether she meant to be or not, is currently the co-star in a 2-hander that ends when the tour opens. One more staging note before we move on. And I want to give this the specific weight it deserves. Rolling Stone's Culture Desk quietly ran a paragraph on the Miami trip in a broader hip-hop news roundup yesterday evening, and their framing verb was resumes, not reunites, not reclaims, resumes. The past tense choice is doing surgical work. It treats the Miami trip as an interruption ending, not as a beginning. Legacy publications don't reach for that verb by accident. That verb sits inside a broader industry read that the Miami trip is the return to the default rollout, and the default rollout has always required a public woman who isn't the private woman. Where this goes next? Watch what happens when the tour actually kicks off. The Ocean Drive footage piggyback sand spaghetti is going to reappear in tour visuals. Not because it's romantic, because it's already proven engagement. Expect Blueface team to loop that footage into the first week tour merch drop, the First City crowd rollout, and at least one onstage moment where Chrisean either appears or is referenced by name. The tour is called Fresh Out of Love. That title only lands as marketing if there's a public love story to be fresh out of. Miami just gave them the story. Watch how the merchandise SKUs get numbered. If the first week tour drop includes an item numbered around the July 27th date, a 0727 hoodie, an Ocean Drive location tag graphic, a spaghetti print tee that nobody will admit is a spaghetti print tee, that's the payoff of the rollout. Merch tied to a specific dated event is the industry's way of monetizing a moment before the moment cools. The next 10 days will tell. Don't be shocked when a limited drop capsule appears with Miami imagery baked into the product photography, and don't be shocked when it sells out in under 48 hours. The Ocean Drive footage is already tour marketing. The tour just doesn't know it yet publicly. By the second week of the tour, expect at least one podcast appearance from Chrisean that references the Miami trip as just a moment, the exact phrasing she used in the November chain interview. Once just a moment hits her podcast circuit, the rollout has closed its loop. The opposition read, the one that says the Miami trip proves Chrisean and Blueface are back together, will fail publicly the first time she uses that phrase on a mic. Watch for it. The phrase is the exit door. Don't be surprised if Nevaeh, within the next 10 to 14 days, either posts a full public exit statement, a live stream response, or, the harder option, nothing at all. The silence would actually be the loudest version. Nevaeh's pattern, based on how she's responded to Blueface public moves in the past, leans toward reactive posts, not statements. If she goes quiet this time, it's because the reaction is happening off camera in a filing office. That's the wild card nobody's pricing in a paternity-related legal move filed quietly while the internet is still watching the sand. Once Nevaeh's silence extends past the 14-day window, expect the story to shift shape entirely. The mainstream outlets that are currently running Toxic Love Wins framing will pivot to where is Nevaeh framing inside 3 weeks, because absence is a better story than presence for their engagement metrics. Hollywood Unlocked will lead that pivot. The Shade Room will follow. By the time the tour opens, the framing war will have flipped. The woman not in the frame becomes the story, and the woman in the frame becomes the sideshow. The opposition read that Chrisean is the main character, collapses the moment Nevaeh's absence becomes louder than Chrisean's presence. By the time the dust settles on this Miami trip, the real residue is going to be Javon. Not Chrisean Jr., not the pregnancy. Javon, the 9-year-old. Because his mother, Jaden Alexis, is watching a father who won't publicly claim their son do public sandwriting for another woman's son's mother, and that is the kind of receipt that shows up in a family court filing 3 months later, quietly on a Tuesday, in a jurisdiction nobody's watching. That's not a prediction I'm making for clicks. That's a prediction I'm making because $10,000 a month child support disputes with a father who's actively demonstrating public prioritization of a different partner is the exact fact pattern that gets weaponized in modification hearings. Watch that space. September, October at the latest, the intermediate consequence that nobody's plotting. The Ocean Drive photos become exhibit material in that hypothetical modification hearing. Family court filings routinely cite public social media posts as evidence of a parent's financial capacity. If you can fly to Miami and rent a corporate vehicle unit, you can pay the difference on child support. That's not speculation about the law. That's how the family court modification standard already reads in most California jurisdictions per the California Court's self-help guide. The sandwriting was a taunt at Nevaeh. It might also become a filing at Jaden. By the time somebody hits October, expect a filing that lists Ocean Drive as an exhibit line. The secondary player nobody's pricing in, Karlissa, Blueface, mother has spent 2024, 2025, and now 2026 as the loudest voice defending every public move her son makes. Her pre-defense of the Miami trip 24 hours before the photos dropped is not an isolated event. It's part of a pattern of her calibrating the family narrative in advance of her son's public choices. Watch what happens if Nevaeh files anything family court adjacent. Karlissa's response window will be under 48 hours. Her live stream ratings will spike. Her role in the rollout will pivot from defender to attacker. By late September, expect Karlissa to be the story herself for a full news cycle. Not Blueface, not Chrisean, not Nevaeh. The mother. That's the family narrative residue. Nobody's costed out yet. The 5-year residue is bigger than any of it. This whole triangle, Chrisean, Nevaeh, Jaden, is, whether the parties involved know it or not, running the exact playbook that gets studied in 5 years as the case study in how a mid-tier rap career converts personal chaos into a sustainable content revenue floor. Whether that residue is looked back on as strategy or tragedy depends entirely on which of the 3 women ends up okay. I have my red on which one. I'll leave that one open. Drop yours in the comments. I want to see where y'all land. By 2031, expect at least one of these 3 women to have published a memoir or a docuseries about this exact stretch of Blueface timeline. The industry pattern for this kind of arc, per the Variety analysis on the Nazcalis Carmen Bryan template, is that the woman who exits earliest becomes the storyteller of record. The woman who stays longest becomes the footnote. Which woman becomes the storyteller of record on this triangle depends on who files first, who leaves first, and who signs the book deal first. My money's on the one nobody's watching right now. Once the tour opens, expect the storyteller to reveal herself inside 18 months. Watch how the industry cost-benefit shifts. The next Miami trip, because there will be a next Miami trip, won't include a caption. Blueface team is going to learn from this rollout that the sand and the piggyback overperformed and the caption overreached. The next rollout will strip the taunt and keep the choreography. The failure prediction for that read is straightforward. If the next Miami trip includes a public caption naming or implying a woman not in the frame, the rollout burned out. If it doesn't, the rollout learned. Watch for the absence. The promise loop closed. I told you the sand writing wasn't the story. I told you the story was what Miami looks like when you line it up against probation, child support, and a tour that starts in less than 2 weeks. Now you've seen it. The receipts are the calendar. The calendar is the confession. And the confession is that yesterday was not a claim, it was a rollout. If this is the kind of breakdown that fits your feed, tap the like, hit subscribe, ride with the bell, so the next case doesn't get lost in the timeline. Comments open. Tell me where you land on the caption, Chrisean, or Nevaeh. This case isn't closed. Part 2 is already in research. Wrap and receipt out.